Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited because we have a really fascinating topic that I think everyone is going to be interested in. And before we get started, I just want to say thank you again for joining us. We're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Please feel free to join the chat room, ask any questions, post any comments. And please remember, your support means everything to us. Also, please be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. You can find us on YouTube and all over social media. I would be ever so grateful if you did that. So today, our topic is Billy Meier's End Time Prophecies. We're going to talk about UFOs, UAPs, and so much more. And if you don't know who Billy Meier is, we have Michael Horn with us today, and he is going to explain all about him if you have not heard about him as of yet. Let me just give you a quick snippet of Michael's background. He has 45 years of experience as a science researcher and began his studying and researching back in 1979. In 1986, Michael found previously unknown warnings, originally published by Billy Meier, that began in 1951. And Billy talked about the unnatural man-made climate change, global warming, the increased frequency and intensity of storms, blizzards, tsunamis, and the coming climate destruction. Now, this isn't all about obviously about climate change, but it does entail some of that. Michael also found that Billy Meier was the first person to warn about the damage to our ozone layer from A-bomb explosions and about the connection between the extraction of petroleum and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, all of which were subsequently scientifically collaborated. So with that, I would like to welcome Michael Horn. Michael, hi.
Hi, Carolyn. How are you?
Good, thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you. I've spoken to you before on Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. We've always had fascinating conversations, and that's why I wanted to continue this one. So folks, you can head over to my channel and watch some previous videos that are uploaded there of Michael and I having conversations as well. So Michael, I just gave the folks a little bit of background as to who you are. If you would like to expand on that a little bit, that would be awesome. And also, to get started, for folks that don't know or never heard of Billy, could you elaborate a little bit on who he is and why we should be diligently paying attention to him?
Certainly. Pardon me. This is one of these extremely dry days up here in the mountains of Berlin. So I'm going to have to sip some water periodically. To answer your questions, let's start with the second one. I think it's the most important one. It's about who is Billy Meier, and why are we interested in his life and his story. Billy is he's an 87-year-old Swiss man now. He just had a birthday back in February. He's 87 years old, and he claims in his biographical material that since the age of 5, he has been having voluntary face-to-face meetings with extraterrestrial human beings, fully human, from another star system very, very far from here. And that he had these meetings starting back then for the purpose that he is now and has been for the past actually about 82 years fulfilling, meaning to to bring forward into our world information and evidence, and another ingredient that is, I'll speak a little about later, that establishes the reality of the existence of far more advanced, highly advanced space and time traveling extraterrestrial human beings who look very much like us. Maybe I'll show you some drawings or illustrations of them. And that actually, this isn't as much about the great UFO photos and evidence that I'll be showing you tonight. And it's not that much about the extraterrestrials when we come down to it. And as this information is presented, as we discuss it, I will wait a little while to give you my opinion of, as to the meaning, the reason for these singularly authentic contacts. So what I'll say, since I've used that phrase many times and I'm using it again, singularly authentic meaning the only human being, certainly living today and for a long, long time, the only human being who has and continues to have these contacts. So UFO photos and videos, and what you'll be seeing in this evidence, was all taken and presented by him. This was all pre-digital. No Photoshop, no computers, no digital effects, no AI. And this sets it apart from every other case and claimed case. So to make a distinction that will perhaps be more comfortable for people, there are all sorts and large numbers of people who have seen objects in the sky. There are photographs and videos, lots of videos nowadays, and some films, although Meier's films are really quite remarkable, unprecedented for clarity. The difference is that nobody who has seen these objects or claims to have had these objects appear for them, or who claims to have actual contact with the, let's say, the occupants, the people who guide and fly these objects, has any evidence to substantiate that level of contact. So when people say that they are, let's say, experiencers, well, when I say experiencers is somebody, means I've had an experience. Well, what does it mean to a lot of people? It's a term that also gets bandied about a bit to try to, let's say, establish that the person who says I'm an experiencer has at least had some kind of a, what would you call it? A sighting, in the presence of other people or even by themselves. And that's fine, because frankly, there's thousands and thousands of people who have had UFO sightings and have them to these days. And there's reasons why there's more of them. We'll get into that perhaps when, a little later on. So the difference here is that this man has, since the age of 5, been on board these craft. He's met with these people and he continues to meet with them. And his evidence, this phenomenal body of UFO evidence that we can take you through if you want, it's accompanied by what right now is well over 45,000 pages of information. And that's perhaps where I should just leave it for the moment, and to say in response to Carol Ann's first question, to expand upon myself, I'm eating as much as I can to expand upon myself a bit in that fashion, because I lost some weight. Other than that, she probably told you everything that's of any importance. What's really the important thing here is that you get a chance to determine the truth for yourself.
That sounded great, and I think it was a really good overview. Of course, you have a website, a blog called theyfly.com. I have it running across the screen.
And they fly blog, yeah, too.
You can head on over there, guys, and check out everything you wanted to know about Billy. This is not something to be taken lightly. This is amazing prophecies, information. Billy has written how many books, Michael?
About 60 to date.
And they're incredible. I mean, I haven't read them all, but a lot of the information is on the website. And when you read the conversations that Billy has had, I guarantee you'll be a changed person. That's how incredible this information is. And I want to take a moment and thank everyone for joining the chat today. Your support means ever so much to us. Feel free to hop in and ask Michael any questions, leave comments, and I will be sure to check them and make sure that we don't miss any. So I wanted to ask you first to tell us about the Polarans. Am I saying that right?
Pleiaren.
Pleiarans. I always mess that up. I know them as the Palladians, but is that one and the same, Michael, or are they two different groups of entities?
No, it's really referring to the actual extraterrestrials who really are called Pleiaren, and the term Pleiadian was a screen name that was. Meier was asked in 1975 to use that name for a period of time. Now, 1975, he's already had years and years of experience, and he says to the people, well, why should I call you Pleiadians? There's no life in the Pleiades. There's no Pleiadians. And they said, well, of course, and you know that very well. But what's going to happen shortly, you are going to be making our conversations, the ones that we're having, and the photographs that you've been taking of our craft for a long time, actually since 1964, photographs, you're going to make this public. It's going to create a controversy. And when that controversy starts, and if you will refer to us as we request for now as Pleiadian, what you're going to find out is that suddenly there's going to be all of these people on Earth who are going to claim to be meeting with Pleiadians, married to Pleiadians, having Pleiadians babies, traveling to the Pleiades to hang out with their star family, all this stuff about Pleiadians. Now, since you know there's no Pleiadians, we don't need you to come to us every time another person pops up with some fabrications about imaginary Pleiadians and to ask us, just so that you can go about your work. You know, you are the only person we're meeting with. Yes, there have been some other people and that you also know about that have been brought into this a little bit, but less than a handful. And all the rest of that you may as well forget about with Pleiadians and what have you. And he said, fine. So it wasn't until 1995 when they were preparing to end the official portion of their mission with Billy that they said, you can publish the information now and explain to people what we explained to you, decades ago, or 15 years ago, whatever it was, really 20 years ago, about Pleiadians. And that may help, because the other thing we can tell you, and he knew this in advance, but he said, you are going to find that after you start coming forward with all this and you reveal the photos and the films and all that we're going to make available through you, that people will accuse you of being a fraud. They will claim that you're hoaxing, that you're making all these things and yourself and making up the conversations. And what is going to happen is it's going to accelerate a controversy on Earth. And the controversy will help to get people more familiar, those who know nothing about or only a little about the idea of so-called, at that time, flying saucers, UFOs, and now the silly term UAPs. We have to make things very vague. UAP. So what's going to happen is that these people will accuse you of being a fraud and a hoaxer. Your life is going to be really very uncomfortable. He's already gone through lots of traumas by this time. But just know that this is the way it is. You've chosen long ago to continue to do this work, to bring this evidence to the people of Earth, and far more important information that pertains to things that they should know about for the coming time. They don't use the term end times because that's more like, I would say it's probably like a biblical term, and it refers a lot to these times. But while these times are going to be, quite frankly, from here on, unbelievably difficult, it's not that life necessarily ends at this time. There's fairly current information about the challenges that are coming our way to survival on the planet. And these aren't the imaginary space brothers and all. These are real living and breathing people who are connected to other extraterrestrials whose, in other words, their own forefathers, going back in terms of this project, this mission for Earth, goes back a minimum of 13,500 years. So this is not a, Johnny come lately high, we're the Andromedans, this other nonsense that goes on. So I don't mind if people have questions, and if they have challenges, I'm respectfully willing to answer, address to the best of my ability. And based on my study, my experience, my personal experiences, and most importantly, the actual evidence that spans quite a bit more than what we're seeing here.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would want to know so many questions to ask, but where do they come from? If they're not coming from the Pleiades galaxy or star system, where exactly did they tell Billy where they? Okay, maybe you can expound a little bit on that, please.
Yeah, a little bit. I can say that it's like where you see the Pleiades in the night sky. You go that way, and then you take a left or a right or up or down and go another 500 light years, and you will find, or actually 420 more light years from the Pleiades we see. Then you will find, if you can find it, their home worlds. It's technically, they call it a separate universe within this greater universe. They're in a different constellation and all that. We have no idea about the true scope of what we call the universe and the extent and expanse of developing life at all sorts of different stages of evolution, primarily human and other life forms as well. But that's a little bit on where that is. There's very little we can do with that. And I'm also going to say this, since I've said that, very little we can do with UFOs and extraterrestrials. What we can do, because of the unique situation and content of this material, is to study, to examine, to test, to question, to challenge, and to determine what its significance is to us in our daily lives. And earlier, when Carol Ann was reading a little bit about Billy Meier's environmental prophecies, and we may get into that depending on how, where we travel here tonight. But let me just say that if you don't know now that there is climate upheaval, destruction, change, all you have to do is go onto YouTube, let's say, and put in storms, floods worldwide. And you will see the most recent dramatic footage, let's say from Spain. But there is now, because of the ubiquitous nature of the cell phone and people being able to, catch these things as they're happening, you will see the most dramatic footage of flash floods, hailstorms, snows, rain, things that are bordering on completely unprecedented, certainly now in terms of intensity and frequency of occurrence. It is exactly as it was foretold in the Meier material, beginning in 1946. And when Carol Ann wants, actually, I'll read you a couple quotes from the material foretelling this. And it goes back from 46 to 47 to 51 and on, describing what we are going to be faced with, what we now are beginning to be faced with, and which will continue, according to this information, for the next 2,500 years.
Okay, we just got a question. I don't know if you would know anything about that, Nazca mummies.
Yes, a little bit.
About that?
Here's what I'm going to say, just to the folks that, I don't want to be evasive. And yes, there's information in the Meier material, not about the mummies, because they weren't talking about him when he was getting all this information about Nazca and the lines and everything. And I happen to know that, Jaime Maussan in Mexico is involved with all this. But out of respect for what this may mean in your life, I would ask you to address questions and challenges primarily about this material. Now, not everybody knows much about it. Some people know more than others. Some people are skeptical. Some people say they understand it's real. But if we can address questions so that if I can possibly give you a response, direct you to where you can find information, here's the giveaway, the takeaway. I consider and have considered for 20 years, since 2004, when I put out my first DVD, the Meier context, the key to our future survival. I consider this the key to our future survival. Now, if you have none to very little association, knowledge of this, you could say, well, how could that possibly be? This is why I want to keep the questions focused here and address whatever Carol Ann or you guys might bring up today. This is something different and separate from UFOs and UAPs and all that stuff.
Well, let's get into that a little bit, Michael. I mean, you and I have talked about that before. Obviously, there are now, with video cameras everywhere, everybody seems to be recording a UAP, UFO. I call them UFOs still, but
yeah.
So what does Billy say about that topic in general? Because clearly, I mean, Billy was visited his whole life, and he still is being visited by them, correct?
Absolutely. They meet face to face.
Right. Okay. So what's Billy's overarching take on, you hear that there are UFOs living in the core, the deep earth, in the oceans, I mean, in the Antarctic. There's so many theories and rumors out there. Tell us what Billy's take is on all these UFO sightings.
Well, sure. Well, first, let me just say, we have had extraterrestrials in their craft, their UFOs, visiting Earth for over 20 million years. So it's not new. Now, as for what you just asked, Carol Ann, under the sea, in the earth, hovering in the skies, yes, some of those craft that are seen, and they are seen, and they will be seen more frequently. And fairly recently, Billy and his alleged extraterrestrial friends addressed that, and they made it very clear. They had us publish saying the Pleiaren are not the people now that are going to be seen and that are being seen in the skies. They did their photo ops with Billy and a small number of other people. So there's about a total of 6 other photographers total. And what's happening is this, and I have a video online that I did with Billy in 2015. Now, while I'm talking, I'm actually going to see if I have a link to that. I think I do. And this is, I was asking Billy about these other races, because they've spoken about this for the very, very longest time. It's not like anything that's really new in the Meier case, because they've given vast histories about the origin of different races. I brought up a screen here that has Billy, and maybe we'll do a little share here. So it's a 10-minute video, and I don't think we want to do it. I'll skip around a little bit just so people get a feel for it, and I'll tell you now to answer a little more, and then if you want, we can do it.
Okay. When you're ready, hit present when you're ready.
Okay. So what people might want to know now is that there have been extraterrestrial visitors to Earth for a long time, but we're not exactly flooded with them anymore. This is a bit of disinformation. There is, well, I'll put it this way, there are 3 groups, and Billy speaks about this, that are currently based underground, who are the descendants of ancient gods, if you will, in Egypt and South and or Central America, extraterrestrials who came and were kind of like the gods and rulers at times in other countries long ago. These people have enormously highly developed technology, and our government makes the mistake of shooting at them all the time. They are not, to the most recent information we have, they are not in contact with anyone. They don't have a hostile intent, but they have their own agenda. And that may be very unfavorable for the United States for different reasons than the hyped and hyperbole disinformation, misinformation that comes via people like Lou Elizondo and others who prattle on about all this. They are popping up to want to direct people's attention in certain ways and to certain places and to keep them away from this material. And if that sounds silly, I've got enough blogs on my, I've got enough articles on my blog. You can read about the outreach to Lou Elizondo, and the one time he responded in a video is on there, very, very unusual. You'll see what constitutes a response from Lou Elizondo. But we know of nobody else in the, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not shy about naming names because you know what? You can check the things out. There are people, there's a Stephen Greer, there's Lou Elizondo, and a whole assortment of people, and a lot of people who are interested in the topic. And that doesn't make them good or bad or anything else. But people who are representing that they are in contact with and have key information from extraterrestrials simply never present the evidence for that. The evidence that we have now is going on in this world today. When Billy Meier is told in 1946 that because of human error, what we are doing to ourselves and in our planet, and yes, a dreaded world, a word that thinks people are going to misunderstand what they meant, because of overpopulation and whoa, no, we are not supposed to kill ourselves off, but we're doing that by overbreeding on the planet, destroying resources. That's a whole separate topic. So we come now back for a moment to those folks that are underground whose craft are being seen more and more in the skies, being filmed or videotaped or photographed. And this is giving more, let's say, fuel to the defense, military, secret intelligence agenda to warn about these dreaded extraterrestrials who, these folks have been here for a very long time. There have been sightings of UFOs in so-called modern times, developed going back to 1915 over the battlefields of Europe. 1915, what is it, 109 years, and we haven't been attacked yet. So that's a bunch of noise. Now, would it mean we would never be attacked? No, it wouldn't mean that, because there are certain conditions under which we, primarily the United States and certain Western powers, would and more than likely will be attacked. And that would be, according to the information in this case, should we go ahead and fulfill a prophecy from 1987, and enter into a dead-end war with Russia, China, and their allies. Joining that side of things may very well be these very craft, or perhaps some others, who simply observe at this point. So we can take that for what it's worth. Now, since I brought up having a little video clip here, what I'll do, I'm going to go and bring up that panel for us here, and we will share this. And what I'll do, I'm going to turn the sound down so we don't hear a lot of stuff too. Okay, that's part of it. That's in the corner was one of the videos that Billy filmed. Now, I'm jumping around here to go to this screen here about Billy's out of it, didn't I? Oh my gosh. All right. The truth about the Tic Tac video is quite different than what we are told. And I just went into this. There's never been a threat for 70 years, blah, blah. So logic tells us any technologically superior race with evil intentions would have long ago attacked, enslaved, or completely destroyed us. So we have to learn to think, which is one of the core purposes for the Meier material and Billy's 60 books to us. All right. So independently authenticated evidence. So here I'm jumping to what the video is about. This was filmed in 2015, and it's freely available online, of course. So here we've got what do you say about the so-called blue race? Are they coming from above or below the earth? So depending on your tolerance and what you think, if you can't see,
als unsere oberirdische Technik is much higher. The technical belongings are much higher as our belonging we have on the earth.
wow. So these people come from underground, and we see them above ground as well. Their technology is vastly superior to ours. Take note, Lou Elizondo.
And they are that people you can see around the world since many, many years, hundreds of years, but you can see UFOs.
Billy's native language is German. He sometimes breaks into a little bit of English.
The most of them belong to them. And the other one...
Now, can you hear him?
Yeah, could you make it a tad bit louder, maybe?
Yes, I will. I didn't want to blow us out of the water. So
belong future of the earth.
Okay, I'm going to stop there for 1 second. There are also future Earth time travelers visiting us.
But the most of them is from underground.
Watch this or listen to this.
It's a state.
It's a state.
I know where it is, but I don't have permission to tell where.
Okay, I asked him about if these were the same as the blue.
In National Geographic magazine, the Blue Men of Morocco.
Yeah.
Is that a blue?
It's not the Blue Men of Morocco.
Okay.
No.
It's a different.
It's different people.
So Billy was in India. He's seen these people.
Him too.
Yes. By him, I have seen 2 of such people.
And then they disappeared.
No.
Oh.
They was walking and they was walking around with the Dharmavara, with the monk. And I had a chance to see them because I was nearly them walking the road, you know. They have nothing to do with our people here over the earth. They stay for themselves. They have only some few people they talk with them, like Dharmavara. You know Pobol Sheng?
Yeah, well,
You know
I
her?
know who she is. I know who Kobo is, but I don't have her acquaintance.
Dharmavara was the uncle of her.
Yeah. And she used to see Esket come in the room.
Right.
Do you want a little more or not?
Michael, who's Esket? You want to go
Sure.
into some of these? Go ahead.
Yeah. Esket is Billy Meier's second contact person, a female, that he became in contact with in I believe it was 53. And she was present at times. We have photographs of her ships in India above this Ashoka ashram. Billy studied the major religions of the world. He spent time at this ashram. He knew the head monk. And Pobol Sheng, I think, was the granddaughter at the time, a young girl. She and 100 people at the ashram were eyewitnesses to these ships and to Esket walking around with Billy. And what was interesting, especially about it, was that Esket used to visit with Pobol when she was a little girl. At night, she'd come in and sing to her, hum to her. And in the morning, Pobol gave a presentation in Laughlin, Nevada. I think it was around 1995 or so. Pobol now was a grown woman who had been for 12 years one of the UN diplomats from Cambodia, diplomat to the UN from Cambodia, highly credible woman. And she was talking about how when Esket would come in occasionally at night and she would fall asleep in the morning, she said, I always woke up feeling like I knew a lot more than when I went to sleep. And whatever was happening, she, tried to reflect on it. And this whole early contact, if we get into the interrogation that I had by a former OSI, USAF, OSI, Department of Defense supervisor. He looked into all of this, and I can tell you and the audience, later if you want. But we can, you can have some more of this, or if you want, let people can come to the blog, and find all these videos and films and whatever you want. But it's up to you. So what would you prefer? A little more?
Sure, you could definitely do this. Very interesting, and it's good because folks are getting to see Billy. They may not know that Billy lost his arm at a young age, right, Michael?
Yeah, Billy lost his arm in 1963, I believe it was. He's 27. It was rather brutal. It was literally just about ripped off his body in a very bad bus accident, which also destroyed his teeth at the time. I mean, if you only knew what this guy's been through, and 25 documented attempts on his life on top of that, and he doesn't waver. And this is like about the nicest guy you could ever meet. Doesn't pretend to be anybody's guru. He doesn't run around. He doesn't give lectures, and he doesn't make big claims. I had the opportunity many times to ask him questions. I have him in films and all, and other people get some interviews with him. And so these things I knew would be of interest to people. So this is just a question I asked about the skin color. So here's his answer, I think.
Nur wenig blau, weißt du, nicht stark blau. So
not intense.
Very soft.
Soft blue color. And do the Plejara know of these underground people too? I asked him.
Ja, die kennen sie auch. Aber die haben keinen Kontakt mit ihm, wollen keinen Kontakt haben.
They don't have any contact.
Warum genau, weiß ich auch nicht. Sie distanzieren sich einfach davor und sagen, es ist nicht im Rahmen ihrer eigenen Bewusstseinsfähigkeit wie die Plejaren. Die Plejaren sind etwas höher, die anderen etwas tiefer. Aber sehr hohe Technik.
Okay, so hold on. You probably have some other things. And folks, you can watch this stuff till the cows come home. And I hope you will. So what I could do, I'll stop sharing this for now because yes, there's another half of this to go. And I just want to say that about Billy. This is a man who is very unassuming. He is masterful in his knowledge of nature and construction of building, not model making. This is a guy with one hand, doesn't sit around trying to make models of UFOs. And there's been such a huge disservice done to him and to the people who want to know the truth. And, it's like Wikipedia and other places. Oh, a cult. There's no cult. There's no religion. There's no sect. There's nothing you must join. You mustn't do. There's no shoulds. There's no beliefs. So this is a different level, and he has the evidence to substantiate everything. And when if we do get into some of the higher standard of proof evidence, you'll find out we have hundreds of examples of this type of thing. But where should we go, Carol Ann?
Oh, that was great. That was great. I'd like to bring up Billy's photography. They seem to be a source of contention for a lot of people because they're fake and they're always saying negative things. Not always, but you know how people could be. But yes. I want to show if you could bring that up. Some of his photography is incredible.
Why don't we bring this Beamship gallery?
Yeah, bring that up. Yeah, and let's take a look at some of the photography, and then you can talk about how authentic they are and how incredibly amazing they are, and give us some info. Sure.
What we'll do, I have to get through. There's a number of them here, but I'll go through a little bit slowly. There are, if I click on this photo here, just to show you, this is a tree. And of course, the silly people like to say Billy Meier was growing miniature tree. We had these photographs. There's a series of 9 in this particular series of this craft at this tree. These photos were sent to forestry experts by the late Professor James Deardorff. And he said, hey guys, forget the silver thing. is that a model tree, a miniature? And they all said, well, no, of course that's not a miniature tree. And this stuff at the top, it's called nesting. And down, and there's, you can see, and you'll see on perhaps another one of them, there's some pruning marks and all that stuff. You can see the reflection in the surface of the shiny metal craft. And remember, Billy Meier is taking these photographs with an old 35 millimeter camera. He never develops the film himself. When he photographs, he often shoots a whole roll of film on a given day and then turns it in to be developed. Okay, so that's one of the photos. Now this is, I got to it a little soon here, so let me get back to maybe, oops, come back up here. Now, 1 second, we're hopping around because there's so much to see here. All right. So this is what's called the wedding cake UFO, and all the geniuses said, oh, it's just a garbage can lid with Christmas tree, ornaments on it. Well, it turns out that Billy took 63 photos of this craft in various locations. This one's, he's 15 feet away from it in front of the farmhouse. They have this farmhouse they converted into their home and into a center for people and all this stuff. And there are these red jewel-like, crystals, and some green and some blue ones here. And there's some machining here. And there's a blue crystal inside one of the globes. You may not be seeing my, cursor, but I'm describing. But let's see here. What if we're the next? We accidentally got a close-up, only accidentally because it wasn't in the sequence that I was showing it. Let's just see something here. As I say, there's a lot of evidence. This is the close-up of that part of the ship. Mr. Billy Meier, with one hand, a worker's hand, folks, he works on the grounds and all that, did not craft this. And I'll show you even another detail. Since this is up, if you look above that globe in the middle, you see this kind of a bluish lens in there. Then to lower right, a little bit to the diagonal right, there's a reddish lens. Below that, you've got some reddish and blue ones. Then on lower part, there's some green and blue and red. Yeah, okay, but there's something above the gold rim of that globe in the center. You can see the bottom of a rim above, right? You see this, there's a band right above. Since I don't have a pointer that's operating where you are, what I'll do is I'm going to take us back to.
See it.
Pardon me?
Your cursor's coming through.
Oh, good. Okay, then you did see that. So what I'm going to do is show you why I'm showing you that. There's a lot of these photos of this craft. Okay, so here, by the way, I actually have a film clip of him when he videotaped this. I'll show you that briefly after a bit. So here's that same craft at a distance in front of a different tree. And if you look down here, that is a pruning mark on the tree. There was formerly a branch there. This is not the type of thing, and I've seen miniature trees, maybe many of you have, model trees. They don't make these funky looking model trees. They try to make them look kind of nice. Why not? But Billy gets this photograph here, as I said, right, in his front yard. And here's what I was pointing to. This rim, can you see where I'm tracing it?
Yep.
Now, bear with me, and I will find, okay, that's another one of these. All right, I'm going to find the, all right, you saw that rim. Now look at this photograph. I guess it doesn't enlarge. This one may not enlarge any more than that, unless it does. But this is where those three globes were in that shot. And this is the line where this top part and this part come together. There's a burnished band of metal here. See it?
Yeah.
Now, nobody, until about 10 years ago, I said to Billy, why does the top of this, the cupola or whatever, the top extend out? And he said, oh, okay, well, there's a separate space up there for something like a shower or washing facility, for the people. And then he brought it up to the Playaran that I had noticed that this thing extends. Now, if you, with your two hands and all your friends, there's a guy that makes very good models, but he's never done this one. This, his model has little things pasted on and all that. But here's the point of it. this requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
The skeptics were saying, this is simply a gold model against a black curtain. Oh, okay, sure, a gold model. Uh-oh, somebody put that photograph right off. They took the photograph here, right off of the page, copied it. I don't know how it's possible because I'm not a high-tech guy. They dropped it into Photoshop. Here it is, photographed at night. This is the same photograph when you adjust the contrast and the brightness. It gives off an energy field around it and underneath. So we know here's a road. This is one of the meter-high posts that are to be found all over parts of Europe. Here's some grass, and there's a grassy hillside. You can't see it. It's at night. So this was one of two photographs that we had where somebody who was investigating said, well, what happens if I throw this in Photoshop and find out about this model? Well, it's not a model. I mean, 63 photographs and a video later, it's not a model. Then, and I have this somewhere too, I could show, they claimed that Billy used a model car. I'm trying to see where that, here for this. And that, this, except that recently, my webmaster, Melissa, did something using what's called fringing and found out that the car is definitely in front of the craft. The craft is huge compared to the car, and it's behind it. And anybody who has those, and here is one of the photographs where they claim, the UFO is in front of the car. It's a model. But even here, you can detect, wait a minute, no, it obscures the roof line here, obscures that. And when she does the fringing thing, you can see it. It's iron freaking clad. Yeah. No two ways about it. So the skeptics are so scared of this stuff because it's a bigger worldview than they want to have about anything. And so, we're running through photos. I'll just show you, since I won't linger too long in case we can come back. But here was another one in the series of those photos. They came around this side. Billy is sitting a good distance away because his camera's viewfinder, I guess it's called, was stuck on infinity. So his photos of things farther away from him are clearer than those things that are closer in the foreground to him. So he was sitting a bit up on a hillside, and he, as I said, he took 9 of these. This is probably the clearest UFO photo you're ever going to see. Well, you see that?
That's amazing.
This similar metals flanging. This isn't one of these high-tech flashy light things, because these craft that you see here are far in advance of anything that we will see on Earth, even from the folks that are underground that are flying. Some nifty stuff around Rio Spectacular light shows and all. This is hovering above, Switzerland. It's such a beautiful country. And Billy got to take, look how, here's another one of, just magnificent, just floating out there. Now, Billy took 1,200 plus photos.
Wow.
And on top of this, for the most part, during this period of time, he's working as a night watchman. He's raising a family with 3 children, single-handedly, literally renovating a rundown farmhouse. I mean, he's sitting around with a kit from Ravel or something. Come on, people. So here's one more of these. Now, he was backed up a little ways on the hill, shooting down at it. Those are real mountains. Those are the Alps back there in Switzerland, a real tree, hillside, and a real sky. Here, this to the left, that's closer to him in the foreground. And he's getting just about as much clarity from something farther away. So this is somewhere between him and the tree down there. Okay.
Oh, that's spectacular. Do you happen, if you don't, no worries, to have that video that Billy made where he went out in the field and he actually shot a video and you can see him standing there?
Yeah, I'll give you that in a second. As a matter of fact, I think I do have that. Yes, I do. So this one, we're not sure if this is one of the ones where he was in the ship. We have 2 that taken from another UFO, but it's so close. He's either sitting and it comes in while he's sitting somewhere, or it's, here's another one with 2 close ones, but I'll show you the ones I'm talking about. I mean, there's a film with this one in it too. It's pretty interesting. 2 of them, those crafts suddenly disappear on the sides. And okay, hold on. I'm going to find the one from the inside. I don't want to bore you with UFO photographs because, as I said, it's the least
No,
important.
this is fascinating. And then we're going to talk about some of his prophecies too, because they're incredible and riveting.
Well, they're pretty profound. I did mention Po Chang at the ashram in India. Asket and 7 of her companions. There's a woman down here who was, I think, the nanny, who's sitting looking up in the sky at the step. And this is one of the craft over the ashram. Okay, let's just see if there's something else to show you. Just so you know, 4 of the craft. Billy shoots an entire roll of film, folks. He doesn't set up models and shoots. One of the most famous of the photos, this is the sunlight photo, where actually another one that was fringed, the branch is in front. It's not a little 18-inch model. That's a 40-foot tall tree. That's a 23-foot object. This is where we want to clear our sinuses. Now, this is a road I've been on many times. The logs are no longer there. This is the famous "I Want to Believe" poster, was done from this shot. They got permission from Billy to use his shot, and this is literally 2 minutes from where he lives, around the corner. And let's get rid of this if we can for a second. All right, because we want to get up to. Okay, that's this. We've seen all this stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so there was maybe one other thing to show. Okay. Oh my gosh. I mean, okay, I'll tell you something else. There are these other photographs down here. I was asked to go, Andrea and I were asked to go to Moab, Utah, because Billy heard that Wendell Stevens, the investigator, may have a locker full or a storeroom full of some stuff that hasn't been seen before. It turns out that this is the information we have to date. There's still some controversies raging. This was a then top secret stealth fighter. This, or attack plane, technically. This is said to be Asket's craft. There were 7 to 9 separate photos in this thing. You can see this, right? Pretty much this on top. Boom, 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 boom. Some are very similar. The ship had come in for an approach, turned, and left. And then Melissa, our brilliant webmaster, did extensive enlargement and found that this craft was the main initial top secret F-117 Nighthawk. She found out who the pilot was. Wow. And she did enlargements of both the photos of his and these. What was so remarkable was that this is not a black plane. It's a camouflage plane. And his was the pilot, Ray Farley. His was the only one, if I'm getting this straight, it was the only one in these stealth series of craft that he developed that was actually camouflaged. So, and she wrote to the guy, and he got a little evasive about things. And I mean, there is so much in here. These are just some of the photos here. And I was asked by the House Intelligence, Counterinsurgency, Counterintelligence, Counterespionage Committee a couple of years ago to send. I had left a photo message, and they said, "Would you send us those photos?" So I sent them digital, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to, we're going to look into this, move them up the chain." They censored them. That's why you good folks who are chasing lights in the sky don't know about this stuff that precedes all this nonsense with the dubious UFO experts and committees that are simply out there to run you in circles so you never get anything conclusive except scary things, threats, and let's raise more money for more weapons, for more dead-end wars. That's what these committees about. But yeah. I've got all the, all these articles are up on there on the website, and the photos are up there. We've got, but you did ask, let me do a share here for the film clip. It's actually a video. It was the only video Billy took once video cameras came out. I think it was in 1981 that he got it. Let me see. Oh yeah, here we are. So I'll tell you what this is. This tells you what it is. It's a short clip, 1981. standing off screen is a guy supposedly Quetzal. He's going to Billy in the right hand corner with it's half a little cap on there, that shirt. In his right hand, he will have a camera. He will come back and forth. We will want to zoom in on the craft shortly, and that's probably 400 to 600 feet away. So I don't. Oh, it's more than 400. Nobody can do it. So there is that craft hovering motionless. This drives us crazy. Why isn't he moving? Oh, it isn't good enough that broad daylight, a guy steps into a video and zooms 400 feet minimum across the field to show you the craft. It isn't good enough. You know, so this is the problem with people who don't do research, are not analytical. So, and here is the photo I showed you before. He's taking it now. Got his camera. He wanted to move the craft. Also said, no, I'm not going to move it. So here's the photograph that was taken that day, which is, better quality than the video version we have.
Now, what year did he shoot that video in, Michael?
81.
81.
All before computers and everything. Here it is.
Folks, think about the tech we had back in 81.
Yeah, good luck.
Exactly.
This is the boonies. It's way out in the middle of nowhere in Switzerland. And I will tell you this, it wasn't, I mean, I can bring it up for what it's worth. Here's a story. I've told it before, but if you guys are at all interested, let's see. Okay. In 2017, I was called unexpectedly on a Saturday morning by somebody I didn't know, a gruff-sounding older guy. He said his name was Joe. And Joe said he was an investigator and a researcher. And would I talk to him about the Billy Meier case? And I said, yes, I would. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah, why? What's the big deal? He said, well, I think it's a hoax. I said, well, let's talk about it. And what I'll do while I'm doing this is I'll be able to bring up that article so that you'll see, and if you want to read the whole thing, that's fine. If not, whatever. But the point is that Joe said, this can't be real, and I'm going to ask you some questions. I said, fine. So what happened from then on was interesting to me. We started having a conversation that day. It soon evolved into what the rest of it would be for every following weekend until the end of March, and that was, it would be an interrogation. This man would ask me question after question after question. He sometimes would be silent and just go, okay. Sometimes he'd have a little other question. He didn't push. He didn't call me names or anything like that. Nice guy, but he was very persistent about a lot of things. And suddenly, at the end of March, the phone was no longer ringing at 8:30 on Saturday morning, and Joe was, for all intents and purposes, gone forever, except that towards the end of August of that year, the phone rang again. Hi, it's me, Joe. And I said, yeah, I know who you are. He said, are you willing to talk to me? And I said, well, of course. He said, well, about your Meier case. I said, yes, about the Meier case. He said, well, I did research on that woman, Pobal Cheng, and I looked her up, and she indeed had been a diplomat at the UN for Cambodia. Her credentials were impeccable. I looked up the article you had about Billy Meier from the paper in India, which was the India Statesman. And I investigated. They're highly credible. The writer who wrote about Billy, he was highly credible. That's not a problem. And he goes on and he says, now, I'm going to tell you who I am. I said, okay, Joe, who are you? He said, well, just go and open your email. Can you guys see this article? Carol Ann? Oops.
You have to hit present.
Yeah. Can you see this one that I'm scrolling now or not?
No, did you hit present?
Yeah, I thought I'll take care of that while I continue the story, so I don't interrupt our big story here. So Joe said, I want you to open your email right now. I said, okay. And I did, and I saw these tabletops, 2 tabletops as I recall, but full of citations. And I could see, because some were up close photos, they were citations of, Joe Tisk from the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigation, from the Department of Defense. This guy was an investigator and supervisor for both. And they were just all these, can you see it now?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, so I'll scroll through a little and you'll see that there's quite a bit here and you can go read it at your own time. And this guy had superlative credentials. Promote this guy at all the time, whenever the possibility. So Joe said, this is who I am. I retired. I live outside the country. Have you seen everything? I said, yeah. He said, now delete it. And I did. Okay. I said, fine. I'd like to have kept it. But Joe was a serious fellow. I respected him. So he wrote an article, and we stuck some photos in here that he refers to certain things. And what you're looking at here is a photograph of Billy Meier back in the 1950s. He was known as the Phantom in the Middle East, in India and in Turkey. Why? Because he was hired by police departments in these Middle Eastern countries, in Asian Middle Eastern countries, to bring in alive serial killers and mass murderers. Billy had been, as a young man, had gone into the French Foreign Legion. He'd run away from home and trouble and all this stuff, and he learned how to be very proficient with a handgun and fighting and all this stuff. And he never would harm anybody, but I asked him, I said, you've got this knife, and he says, no, I never killed anybody. I only shot if I was shot at, and then I only would wound, so the police come and they take the people away. He's just such a matter-of-fact, low-key guy. So here's the article I was just referring to that Joe refers to from this paper, The Statesman. As I said, this is all for free on the website. You can see it all. Here he is. This is, before he loses his arm, here's young Billy, Edward Albert Meier, at this point, 28 years old, what have you. And he's got an album with him. He's got an album of 80 UFO photographs back in 1964. That's when this was taken. And the silly skeptics, there's this guy, Kevin Randall. Billy must have had a photo enlarger or access to a dark room while he's wandering around in Switzerland as a vagabond with a knapsack. And here's another photo, from that ashram. This photo, this camera I'm very familiar with because the photographs taken by it are so simple. My father had one. It was a 1940s Kodak Bellows. And it was rough enough to take decent straight. You had to pull the front part of it out. The bellows expanded and click, and then you had to advance the film by hand, all this stuff. So all the stuff you're reading in between is commentary from Joe, who said to me, he said, basically, I got to tell you, your Billy Meier case is 100% ironclad authentic. I will take on any skeptics on your behalf. And he did. And he made monkeys out of them. And he says, listen, these people are stupid. I can't talk to people who don't know how to investigate. I'll write the article. And this is what he did. So he wrote the article. Here is Po Bo Chang, and the Buddhist monk grandfather who dies, I think actually died in California at about 103, 106. And here is this Sashi Raj, who had been in India when Po Bo was a young girl, and she was a witness as well. She got up, and then it was later in the 90s that Po Bo went and visited with Billy as a grown woman. They spent all this time talking and everything. And Joe explains how simple it is, using actual standard means of investigating criminal, that are used in criminal law, means, motive, and opportunity. And he goes through them all. This is Billy. Go ahead, Caroline. I'm sorry.
No, I was just coughing. Go right ahead. So how old is Billy in that photograph there?
Here, he's probably about 26 or 7.
Wow.
He had a pet monkey that he traveled with named Emperor, I believe. And then Joe examines motive and all. Billy has traveled something like 42 million miles hitching and walking over a number of years throughout Europe, Asia, the Middle East. He always took different jobs along the way to do different things. Here he is in Pakistan. This is shortly before he loses his arm. This photograph is when he was at the ashram. This is taken from a film we made called The Silent Revolution of Truth. Billy is sitting, dark hat, in front of a spire from the ashram in the background. He's sitting cross-legged on the ground, and a British woman took this photo. What you're looking at here, and I've had my nose up to this photo to check, this is not painted on. This is a hologram that was generated in the sky in 1964 by ASCAD. And when you're close to the photo, or when you have an even better look at the photo, there's partial cloud around the thing. And there's some very strong reasons why Billy Edward Albert Meier is sitting in India at an ashram while a very familiar Christian type symbol, which by the way is not the symbol of an accurate symbol of the actual cross of the crucifixion, was Y-shaped, not cross. But this symbol is here, and I had a strong theory about it. That's another story. Here's I showed you a photograph of three. This is from a video. This is a video in which they appear. It's actually a film, not a video. Here, after Meier had much of his arm ripped off his body, he's in Turkey with his now ex-wife, 1965, I guess is when he actually lost the arm.
Michael, let me ask you a question. Did Billy, I'm sure he did have a conversation with you as to why he was chosen?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's not that just me. He's published because people have asked him for the longest time, well, why you? Well, you know, the simple answer is it's got to be somebody, doesn't it? There's going to be somebody. Certainly none of these people, none of the people yammering online and peddling books, they'd wet their diapers if they were at a situation like this. Anyway, I'll answer the question for you. I'll just go towards the end here, the different photographs and things. So, Joe, I just happened to see it. It is all the evidence that needs to be reviewed, but not all the evidence needs to support the case, and that's a fact. You can, and he explains why one authentic photo, let alone 1,200, and Billy's films, and being in the right place at the right time, why this is real. And you're talking to a guy whose task was not chasing UFOs. It was to protect the security of the country and the people living in it, not running around giving lectures on imaginary grays and the rest of this. Oh, yeah, there's controversial information about that. By the way, yes, there were androids in the crashes at Roswell, which was real, and some other places. But all this thing of people thinking there's grays running around, no. Anyways, these are just some of his hundreds of photos, you know, just goes on and on and on forever. But let's get to answer your question so people don't get too frustrated with me here. All right, I'll stop sharing. It goes like this. And by the way, I cannot prove the following. As far as I'm concerned, it's fair to say it's speculative. I can't prove it nor disprove it. Here is the information as I understand it, according to this case. The human being has a couple very interesting components to it, and many more that we don't know about. We hear this term soul, which is an inaccurate term. Actually, there is, as we understand it in either religious or metaphysical or New Age paranormal, there is no soul. There's something called the psyche. The psyche is primarily located around the, wait for it, solar plexus. Hence, it became called the soul. Now, the soul has the psyche has a whole other function. Billy's got a whole book about the psyche, among other things. I mean, these books, I'm going to have to grab before the show's over. I got to just show you a couple of covers. These are the most engrossing books you will ever read. Okay, a man who you'll ever meet through his writing. So, according to the information of the case, the other essential and most important component is what we formerly called the spirit, what they simply refer to now as the creation energy part piece, the piece of this universal creation energy that enlivens every human being, and all living forms have some form of a creation energy, or you want to call it a creation energy spirit or form or whatever you want to do. That is located deep within the center of the brain. When we die, when we pass out of this world, as we all will, we come in, and before we get into what happens when we come back as different people, this part begins to dissolve, and all of the critical and important information gets absorbed. It's absorbed by the creation energy form. It's absorbed in something called the consciousness block and in the storage banks. There's a lot of information here, and I'm kind of not doing it justice, but I want to get to the answer as much as I can. This psyche is temporary, new in each life of psyche. This creation energy piece, this former immortal human spirit, is indeed an immortal, forever existing part piece that enlivens the personality in each lifetime. Now, what is said in this case, and we can get or not get to the reincarnation part, it's okay, but Meier is the seventh, if you will, prophet / contactee to be enlivened by this ever-evolving spirit form, which is enormously ancient, again, according to information in the case, which says that it originally enlivened a man in a distant system billions of years ago who was called Nokodemion, who lived as a human being, passing through, progressing, evolving through all of the requirements and stages of human development into the semi-material, semi-physical form, such as exists in the High Council in Andromeda, again, according to the information, and who then passed into the lower levels of the high creation energy, what you'd call spiritual levels, Arahat Atharsata, as a pure, conscious spiritual form, no physical bodies whatsoever. Now, put that just aside for a moment. Let's just go. So, 13,500 years, this spirit form that had gone into the creational level of Arahat Atharsata had accepted, if you will, the task of going back into the manifested worlds of material life and evolution and all, to act as a prophet in material worlds that were in need of guidance. And it accepted that and appeared in at least another world or two as a prophet. As a matter of fact, returned to a civilization that he had been the, let's say, guiding force and leader of, and who he had taught the spiritual creation energy teaching to, but who after his passing had gone in the wrong direction and fallen into lots of aggression and violence and degeneration, and coming back, and there were wars to be dealt with, and he makes this appearance there. Let's just fast forward to here. The mission connected to our world in its origins through his then continuing reincarnations in various worlds, if I've got it right, begins about 389,000 years ago, developing a mission for this world. 13,500 years ago, a prophet comes called Henoch, and there's actually about two Henochs too. This can get a little confusing, but you can sort it out for yourselves if you read either the free stuff or the books that just detail all this, and begins to bring the creation energy teaching to the people of the earth, because they knew through their own views and visions and abilities, the Pleiaren, if you will, or the Pleiaren ancestors, that this was going to go badly here for a number of reasons, including historical interference here with other extraterrestrials who had come. Some had gone, returned, some died out, some were based under the Great Pyramid of Giza, and they would remain there until something like 1978 or so, until they were removed. Folks, this is Star Wars on steroids. It's Luke Skywalker meets Indiana Jones meets Lawrence of Arabia, and you have to make up your own mind. But I don't know, for a guy who could do all of this with one hand and never tried to work for Hollywood. As a matter of fact, I think it was Steven Spielberg who said to him, because Spielberg was interested in this case, "Hey, Billy, how do you take those film? How do you make that with the ship coming in?" And he says, "Well, I take my camera, and when the ship comes, I press the button." You know, it's like, "Hey, dummy." So with reincarnation here, that particular spirit form would appear subsequently, or back in our history, as Enoch. They call him Henoch, Henoch, Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel. Oops, who's Emmanuel? Isaiah 7:14, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. Matthew 1:23, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. That's what the man's name really was 2,000 years ago. He was no editorial intersection before I get to the final two prophets. No human being named Jesus Christ ever walked the face of the earth, because as famous as that person must have been, clearly 2,000 years ago, listen, biographies of famous people, rulers, warriors, all the rest, they go back way BC. You know, it's 2,000 years ago. There's still plenty of biographers already written about all sorts of people, but nobody ever wrote a biography about anybody named Jesus Christ. Only in religious texts, which were, in terms of the New Testament and in terms of the Old Testament, written well after any events occurred, either in Old Testament times or New Testament times. So,
Michael, that's a lot. Is this information on theyflyblog.com where folks can go kind of dig into that?
Yeah, you know what I want to do? Pardon me, I'm going to do the unforgivable. I have to just reach
I'm
back.
going to take a little midway station ID break real quick. Thank you again, folks, for joining us today. It means so much to me and everyone at the network that you do. For those of you just tuning in, you're listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, the place where you can discover your truth. We are live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3, 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. And again, thank you so much. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. It would mean the world to me if you do. And thank you so much for listening today. So, Michael, while you're getting ready to present,
Sure.
I have so many questions left for you, but
okay.
I'm going to let you finish what you were talking about.
Okay.
But after that, I have a few things I want to get into.
Definitely.
I want to talk about some of the prophecies because I found them to be amazing. And there are so many and so much information. And again, you can find this all on theyflyblog.com. All of Bill's prophecies are listed there. I want to talk about briefly what's going on in Italy and how Billy predicted that. And I also want to ask you about what Billy says about Microsoft and the NSA. So I'm going to let you finish what you're talking about, and then we're going to delve into some of that stuff.
Absolutely. So I mentioned that Billy wrote about 60 books. I think we've got about a dozen that have English translations. There's a book called The Might of the Thoughts. This was probably the first book that I've read and am rereading. I mean, you say you read or have read Billy's book, and then you go, well, I've only read it 9 times, so I'm starting the 10th time. These are just, and they're not hard language. It's just that the concepts, there's no beliefs. There's nothing to believe. It's fed, and it shows you how the mind actually works, how the thoughts give birth to the feelings. Then the feelings, give birth to a micro thought, another thought to the action that we will or won't take. And this happens for most human beings completely unconsciously, and it's going on 24/7. And this is how this book, and look, so many people say, but I like this other book better. Yeah, this book, I just love this book because of how it liberates our thinking. very necessary in these times. And Billy has, a book you could make a sentence out of. He's got a book that's called The Way. Back here, The Way to Live. And that is what's missing, the way to live. I mentioned briefly the psyche. We have a book, Introduction to Meditation. Oops, I'm not good with that, am I? This book, Introduction to Meditation, wonderful, talks about all forms and formlessnesses of meditation and how people get hung up unnecessarily on thinking they have to meditate a certain way, they have to do it this or that. The Way to Live explains how life works. All these books speak about these eternal and immutable laws of creation that are neutral. One that I love finding out about, and then we can go on to what you want here, Carolyn, the law of provision. You well heard about the law of cause and effect, and we'll get into that in a moment. The law of provision, which, again, I don't always do justice to trying to encapsulate something, but it's basically this. This creation, this universe is set up without punishment as a basis for any. There's no punishment built in. We create it. We do it by violating the functional laws of life. When we do that, we run into the consequences of abusing life and all the freedom we have. So we get snapped back, sometimes just a little bit, sometimes, you're out of here. But we are not punished by life in any way, shape, or form.
Now, you and I have talked about that in the past, how Billy doesn't believe that there is such a thing as karma. Is that related to what you're talking about?
Well, yes, it doesn't mean that we don't have things that we have to master and may have to master in another life, but negative things aren't carried over like that. You see, it's like, you can put this in my 2004 DVD about this. Billy said, this is not the way creation works. Creation is the embodiment of love, real love, not just the stuff we think we know as love. It doesn't punish things. It creates so that each human life, each time a human being is born, comes in, you have a clear slate, or you would be coming in with lifetimes of God. You'd never live a life. Right? But we will make mistakes, and we have to learn. And we will, when we pass out of life, we will have, let's say, accomplished all this, and maybe we didn't get to this. The positive and the negative are dealt with to that level that we can complete in each life. And we will have more and new challenges and learning experiences in every life, assuming, of course, that there are indeed additional lives. The kicker being we never come back as the same personality, which is why it can be frustrating for people, but it's very logical. If reincarnation was something that in each lifetime you could remember the past one, we'd never live this life. We'd be so burdened with even just the last one, and then you're in the third life and you're going, oh, in the life before this one, I was just reviewing all this other stuff from the first, and you're out of here again.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that makes so much sense to me. I feel very comfortable with that premise. And I have an important question from Francis that I want to pop in here, if we can just interject. A lot of people are talking about these white orbs that they see. They see them in their homes. They see them in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
He wants an answer. He said he had some experiences as well with them. What's Billy's take, your take on this, please?
Well, I'll give you my understanding of Billy's take. He wrote about it recently, but he wrote about it some time ago. He was discussing it with a player, and they said, oh, yes, of course, these are energy forms, and they can, they are attracted at times to other energy. They will, just kind of pop up and be around. And in some cases, certain conditions underground with gases can also produce this effect, but they are real things. It's not what they aren't that I'm stating based on the absence of any reference to it being. These are not like spirit forms coming from places to, create contact with people. It doesn't mean that you can't get photographs. It doesn't mean you cannot get photographs or films with these objects, and maybe they're buzzing around people or buzzing around you, or you feel it. But we also, let's remember, we have a great desire for the unusual, the so-called paranormal, which doesn't exist. As Meier said, there is no paranormal. Things either are real and are existing in accordance with laws of physics that we may or may not know, or they're hoaxed, faked, imagined, what have you. But there's plenty of phenomena. In the book on reincarnation, some in there, but in the book on what they call fluidal energies, it's fascinating. Talks about these energies, the things that are called, they explain what ghosts are and apparitions, and how people can unconsciously, in one place, I'll just describe the story so it's hopefully more understandable. I get excited about this stuff. There was an elderly woman who lived someplace or other, and she grew up in this house, and eventually she moved out and had to live in some smaller quarters or whatever age, whatever the situation, but she'd fall asleep in the afternoon. Well, some people bought that house apparently, and they started to notice every now and then at a certain time, a little girl was walking down the stairs in a dress, and she would disappear. And they thought they were going nuts at first. So somehow someone knew about this, I guess, and asked Billy, and he had gotten information, said, this is an elderly woman who had all these experiences in this home as a child, and her psyche, and it's book that I can't, black thing.
In front of your chest, I think it would. Yep,
oh,
there you go.
There, sort of, psyche, right there. So when she would fall asleep, her psyche or her unconscious, again, this I tread carefully because I get these terms mixed up at times. What's doing what? Just tell you the truth. So she would be able to trigger the apparition, the phenomenon, not deliberately. She'd fall asleep, and some unconscious part of her, or some part of her unconscious to her consciousness, would be able to trigger this, the attachment to this place. There are things that are called fluidal energies, fluidal forces or energies that emanate from all living forms and very strongly from human beings. Some people are very sensitive to them. You've heard of or known people that can do psychometry, right? Oh, here's a stone that was kept in so-and-so's house. Stones and gems are not good things to have on your body or have too close to you, because they contain and they bind to them a lot of the negative energy of this earth, according to this material, but whatever. So let's just say this was something that belonged to someone, or this crystal belonged to somebody, and it was kept, and somebody holds it and they go, oh my gosh, I'm getting, and they'd be able to pick up energy. They can do it with coins or something. It's another reason why sometimes you'll walk into a place and you'll feel a certain way. You might feel depressed, right? You might feel very good in certain places. Or if somebody gives you something, or things that everything binds these energies to them. And Billy has written a whole book about it, and how things you just don't even know exist and how they operate.
Let me ask you a question, because crystal wearing is huge, and it's bigger now than ever. I mean, I even have a few bracelets of different types of stones that are supposed to attract energies and whatnot. So you're saying that they can also hold negative energies, and that makes absolute sense. That's why a lot of people say you should put them at night under the moonlight and let it clear. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but
yeah. In some of the stuff I've read, they said, here's what you have to understand. This planet, we do have a unique situation going on here, not always for the reasons people think, and sometimes for those reasons. So there have been comings and goings on this planet for a long time. There have been, for thousands of years, until 1978 or so, this highly negative race. There was a guy named Ashtar who was part of it. You hear about the so-called Ashtar Command and all. And they had people under what was called telenautic control, a form of hypnotic control that they could broadcast from distances to control people. I'm sure our military, we already are doing certain things, as we know, with electronics and 5G and all the rest of this business. So when those people were removed from the planet because they had tried to kill Billy and blow up his house, and something happened, an interesting story, they were removed, but their lingering effects will be here on Earth for a long time because of the things that they did. They were the directing forces behind the major religions, the ones that had deities.
Yeah.
There was a fellow whose name was maybe familiar to people, who was supposedly one of their leaders for a long time till he died in a couple 2,500 years ago, whatever it was. And his name was Jehovah. It was a real dude. And when we take this information with a grain of salt, because please don't believe, if you want to disbelieve, you're probably in a better state of mind, because then you can read things and go, well, let's see, does that make sense? Let me go to this reference, and you find out that one thing they don't have that I haven't found is contradictory stuff where it contradicts what we said here and there. It's all consistent, thousands of pages. Okay, so this group that was known as the Bafath, B-A-F-A-T-H, or called the Giza Intelligences, Meier was shown while they were still on Earth. He was taken by Asket beneath the Great Pyramid where they had their base and shown a huge ship they had under there. Remember, Edgar Casey had said there was a great spaceship under the pyramids. Yeah. There was, and they had more than one ship. And he was shown the faked artifacts that Billy, when he saw it, he said, oh, that must be the cross of the crucifixion, because on a plateau, on a platform, he saw the supposed spear of destiny and the chalice that they I always forget what they call that thing. The goblet. What do they call it again? Anyway,
you're talking about the chalice that Jesus drank from.
Supposedly, except that Jesus never drank alcohol and he never drank from that chalice. But there was no Jesus. On top of it, there was an Emmanuel, and there was a Last Supper and all that stuff. But here's the thing: those artifacts, they had these rusty, blood-encrusted nails and a crown of thorns. And Billy and Asket are communicating only telepathically because they are out of phase. I mean, they can't be seen, but they could be noticed if they did the wrong thing. So, and the transcript on this is available too. It's fabulous. And he's saying that must be the original artifact from the crucifixion. She said, well, no, of course not. She said, those artifacts have long since turned to dust, obviously, at least the cross and thorns on, but they have been remanufactured by these people because they are planning a false second coming. What are you talking about? I said, yes, they have under a mind control a guy named Reinhold Schmidt, a corn seller from California, among other people, who believe that they've been on board craft with these people and all this, and he is being inputted to come to believe that he's the second coming. And so when the time is right, they would have the artifacts to present, and the goal of their existence is to basically enslave the world in a one world religion, and he would be the figurehead and they would be the ones running the show. And Billy's going, okay, so
is that the Antichrist?
Pardon?
Is that a reference to the Antichrist?
Perhaps. I don't know all that stuff. I mean, those terms are mentioned in the 666 and all this stuff. Whatever, it was said to be the agenda of these remaining Bafath, and they were moving towards that. And they had created, I think they were, at first Billy said they were the ones who created the 1918, that apparition in the sky. But it turns out not to. It was another group, and they said, this is the group, and we wanted to not tell you until now for certain reasons. Okay, and here it is. It's all there. But they said it was an extraterrestrial group that did all that. Basically, it's to get the people who are so easily seduced by belief systems and religions and giving up their power in politics and everything else outside of themselves to be drawn into being controlled. Everybody, which is
what about Microsoft and the NSA?
Yeah,
like since we're heading down that road, because you've got stuff like, and I've spoken to so many authors and authorities on like Project Bluebeam, where they're supposed to create these holographic alien attacks in the sky, and it's supposed to be like a covert government plan. I mean, does Billy say anything about that? And
yes, I had talked to Billy, a few years ago about the possibility of a fake ET attack, and he said that is still a possibility. He admitted that. He said it's still a possibility, but who knows right now, because the way that things are going with the war provocations and how things could turn. An ET attack could be, who knows? But we're making mistakes are governed by shooting at UFOs because their technology is so vastly superior that if they get tired of that at a certain point, then, we've been attacked. No, you were defended against. So NSA, do you want me to just tell you what it says or to try to bring it up or what?
You can bring it up if you have it handy.
Okay.
I mean, I'm intrigued by that. So if you could do a quick rundown, that would be awesome.
I can. Just a sec. Let me just get this here and see if I'm saying I can, but let me try to do that. Get it ready. Find micro. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to get the show going.
Yeah, this is all on Michael's blog. So he's got a search in there. You can go to flyblog.com and plug in any keywords that you want to.
That's true. Now, let me see if I got that input. Theyfly.com. Oh, maybe. Let's see if this is it. Oh, I think it are. Here we go. Share. Okay. So in these contexts, I don't generally, I used to, but I don't generally publish German, English, because the majority of my readers read English and we like to go straight through the English. One of the sites that has both has English on one and German on the other. So let me just see, maybe I can get through the bullet points on this. Okay, Billy, let's see. Some time ago, if I may ask another question, you said the U.S. Secret Service manipulate the internet and the computer world. This is in 2007, by the way, which I have also suggested in a bulletin about the CIA. He had a whole thing about the CIA and their SOG team and all that. I don't know if it's in here or not. Whereby Microsoft is also embroiled in it with the Windows system. Can you tell me which U.S. Secret Service is therein embroiled with Microsoft, along with the CIA, if it is also involved with that? The alleged extraterrestrial Ptah, and I have the drawings if people want to see them, it's on the site. The Windows program system is manipulated through the U.S. Secret Service, NSA respectively, through the National Security Agency, as well as through other secret services. And by the way, so I don't forget, there's something about Musk that we might want to mention. The manipulation enables the secret services to penetrate into any computer unrecognized and according to their desire in order to pull out data, or unrecognized to carry out alterations and falsifications of the existing data. Okay, now I think that was all that they had in this one describing that aspect of Microsoft. And as you can probably see, they've been warning about this freaking climate destruction for so long, going back to 1946. And, we just kind of bumble along, So let me see if this is the SOG thing. And then I mentioned Elon Musk, and let's see. Here's the SOG thing. This is from October 2006. What is the SOG team, which allegedly exists within the USA Secret Service, and is it true that the CIA is more powerful than the government of the USA?
Boy, that sounds like the truth.
Yeah, well, if all that has been heard and written about that is true, asks Billy, how does that fit together with the Christian religion, to which indeed also Bush belongs? Does he undertake nothing against that? You know something about that, and can you provide a detailed answer in one of your bulletins? Okay, the answer. This was actually a reader's question, pardon me. Billy does the answer. The so-called SOG team, Special Operations Group of the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, actually exists, and that is a damned unpleasant matter of fact, because neither the SOG team nor the CIA shy away from any murder. The CIA is the actual secret USA American world government, whose headquarters, respectively head office, is located in Langley in the US state of Virginia. The primary mission of the secret organization that functions as a secret service and is a superpower in a super nation is espionage, for which the US government pumps in billions of US dollars. It can be said with a clear conscience that the CIA practically has unlimited power at its disposal and does not shy away from any crime, nor from any inhumanity. What the quote-unquote license to kill is for the English crown in the James Bond films is absolute reality for the CIA because it has a government license for unlimited mass murder. Essentially, nobody knows how many humans thereby work for the CIA because everything is strictly secret, whereby also torture and murder are employed unhesitatingly to protect that secrecy. Anyone can come into the crosshairs of the CIA, even the most irreproachable, because with this, the biggest of all espionage organizations, and indeed also the biggest terror organization in the world, basically every human is suspect and his life is not safe.
Now, these are questions posed from somebody.
And these are, yeah.
So let me just state that this is, this is Billy's opinion, allegedly.
Yes.
And, obviously this is all just Billy's opinion about the government. And whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting read. Let's just hop, because we only have like 15 minutes left.
Okay.
And again, we'll have you back, Michael, because there's so much information that folks need to know, especially about the prophecies, which we didn't really dig into too much today. But I'd like to spend the rest of the time talking about that a little bit. So let's just cover what's going on in Italy today. So there's a lot of volcanic earthquake activity. Even the government of Italy has put warnings out to its people to evacuate.
No, I don't think they have.
I read that they wanted them from certain areas.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been very strong because since I think I know you want to talk about those things. Let's go back. 1948, Billy's first teacher, Svath, predicts that in the coming time, these things will erupt. How does he predict this? What does he do? And what does he say? He goes through a whole bunch of information, and he says in between 2015 and 2017, that would be about 2016, there will be powerful, very strong earthquakes in central Italy. They will be the precursors to the coming eruptions of, and if I can remember them, Vesuvius, Mount Etna, Mount Marsili, Stromboli, and Campi Flegrei. And he says this is now, that will mark the coming times. They talk about coming times and pivotal. They don't say end times, but leave it to humankind. We might do it. Anyhow, when I read that, because I try to check out everything before I put it up and say, Billy foretold this. I want to make sure he's the first one. So I searched online, and I have the links in my articles for the earthquake Central Italy 2016. Here it says the strongest earthquakes on record occurred in Central Italy in 2016. Okay, 1948, he publishes that. Then I find out that all 5 of these volcanoes now have some level of activity. Stromboli is blowing occasionally, Etna's blowing. Campi Flegrei. This, you have to watch it. I got blogs about it. When that goes, that's a caldera. That's a huge thing, huge. I think there's about 500,000 people living directly in that vicinity. So I sent off to friends of mine in Italy, plus to some government people, warning, evacuate, get warning, you must evacuate, Italy must evacuate from Campi Flegrei. Well, of course they haven't. And that doesn't, see, you put it out, and then people, if the thing doesn't happen next week, the skeptics are, well, see, it didn't happen. or then if it happens, well, it didn't happen when we thought it would, or when you seem to indicate. There's always an out for the denial. We don't know. Billy knows, the player know, but they're simply saying you might want to get out of there. Now, there's so many things that we've been warned about. When these volcanoes go, as it seems pretty absolute certain that they will go, it will be parts of Italy eventually go into the sea. The Vatican is going to be destroyed when Vesuvius erupts. Oh, some very smart skeptics said, Vesuvius erupts? Well, that's in Naples and the Vatican's in Rome. It's absolutely nonsense. It can't happen. It was within a year of one of those complaints that there was an article that came out, and we have it, of course. Rome Airport, venting of gases is starting to be noticed, and they find out, guess what? There's magma chambers from Vesuvius that extend all the way under Rome. Kaboom, goodbye. So there are things we have charted, just so folks know, well, you're saying when this happened. We have over 250 specific error-free examples of Meier's prophetically accurate information going back to 1946 or 45, and just one thing after another, events that occur. The only reason that I moved on from the UFOs was because after I'd had the material, I found the material in the bookstore in 1979 in Los Angeles, got the book, fascinating. Then I meet this guy in a cafe in Sedona, Arizona, a guy who subsequently moved on to become a huge hoaxer in the UFO world, calling himself, oh my God, maybe I'm blocking. His real name is Ralph Amagron, and he gave himself this Alex Collier name. Anyway, total fraud. Nice guy. Gave me 1,800 pages of the material. We had met in this cafe. I went up to see him when I went back to California, and he brings me all this stuff. He says, look, I read all this. It's a fascinating case. So he's co-opted a lot of the information and twisted it to make it sound like he's got these experiences. Poor guy. It's gone. Okay, so here's all this stuff, and I start to read everything. It's one thing after another, and I realize, wow, this is about something much more important than UFOs. Mm-hmm. Conversations. He's asking him questions. Well, what about this? And they say, okay, we can tell you about that, or we cannot discuss that with you. Well, they tell him about ozone damage. They tell him about the coming massive destruction that's going to come from earthquakes and volcanic eruptions caused by our stupid extraction of petroleum, natural gases, mining, and of course, like they said to him, the earth collapses in on itself, fracking, all this idiocy that we've done. And Meier's the guy who started the whole environmental, the true, not the phony green movement and dopey, what's her face, Greta Thunberg flying around the world, chastising people. Well, it's turned into another industry. The real deal, folks, go on YouTube. Worldwide floods, storms, rains, whatever. That's the real deal. The green people that go and destroy things in museums and glue themselves to roads because they're brain dead and they have nothing better to do with their lives. By the way, they're funded by an American, highly wealthy American woman. We won't go into that. About Elon Musk, since I mentioned, I'm motor mouthing through so we don't miss what you want. Meier did say in one of the contacts with Ptah, Elon Musk is doing a lot of this development, and there are some things that people aren't going to be too happy with in the future. They published that some years ago, and somebody recently on my blog reminded that Elon Musk develops all of this satellite monitoring technology for the friggin' military. Brilliant guy, but maybe he's got his feet in two different camps. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. But that's a whole nother conversation right there. But Michael, in closing, because I think we've got like 10 minutes left.
Okay.
And like I said before, I definitely want to have you back because I've got a boatload. I've got so many more questions that I want to ask you, especially about the prophecies, because Billy nailed so many of them. And again, You
Yep.
can go on Michael's blog in the search field and find all this prophecy information in there. I mean, the place is jam-packed with so much great information.
Can I throw out a couple quick ones that happen to be facing me?
Absolutely.
The first warning, they have, since the prophet Jeremiah, they've used the term rampantly spreading diseases to speak about really big, bad diseases. And in 1947, Billy Meier, who at that time is, I think, 10 years old, publishes information that he has seen with his time-traveling friend Svath. And by the way, yes, to a legal and scientific standard, within 15 minutes, I can prove that Billy Meier and the Pleiaren are time travelers. So if you have lawyers amongst you who want to challenge that, we could have a fun time.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, in 1947, Billy publishes extensive warnings about let's call it a rampantly spreading disease that would appear in the third millennium, and there would be connected to it some really bad effects from attempts to medicate against it. We'll leave it at that. In 81 was his first foretelling of two coming U.S. civil wars, one following upon the other, the country breaking up in 4 or 5 territories with various dictatorial sectarian rule in this fractured country. In 87, he foretold the fate of America in that document that warned about the coming, wars with Russia, the destruction of the WTC, 1987. In 2006, and I have a video online that I did in 2006, where I described having spoken to Billy, where he said, I asked Billy Meier if the Iraq war was primarily due to oil, fundamentally due to oil. And Billy lifts his finger up and says, fundamentally, no. It's about your dollar, and if things go a certain way, you may as well roll cigarettes with your paper money.
Gosh, he nailed that one.
Didn't he? And then in 2015, he said something bound to be popular, that he said behind most domestic terror attacks, I think he said only 5 of 175 do not directly lead back to the FBI. Now moving along, 2017, in the prophecies and predictions in there, where he's then goes more into the coming cashless society, the dispossession of people around the world, and especially with the ban on cash and the money being controlled solely, by these governments and banks. The government in the U.S. will turn the police and military against the partly heavily armed U.S. citizens.
Wow.
Yes, and by the way, we have other kinds of things that we can get into next time. I have astronomical predictions from Meier, where he predicts, he's given by the Pleiaren, the name of I think it's called the Mars Observer, or something like that, a mission that would be launched, and it's in writing 10 years before it's invented. And it's like this.
I was going to ask you that. All of these predictions, it's important for folks to know that they're documented decades in advance.
Decades, years, months, yes.
Right, whatever it is.
And there's ways
documented.
And there's ways that anybody can also figure out, because some people say because in 1987 he talks about 2 U.S. wars with Iraq and Russia moving its troops to Arkhangelsk in preparation for its attacks against Finland. Why would Russia attack Finland? 1987, it's all neutrality. They're all now in NATO. Yeah. And Russia moved their troops to the exact place mentioned in the 87 document. Folks, the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg, Well,
we'll definitely reach back soon. We'll schedule another one of these, because it's really important for folks to know. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been a fountain of information and knowledge. I know it's a lot for folks. You can watch this re-recording on my YouTube channel if you missed any of it or want to reiterate some of what Michael said, but we will definitely have Michael back again soon. Thank you so much, Michael. Namaste, and I will be in touch soon.
Live long and perspire. Something like that, right?
To everyone in the chat.
Okay.
Some of the questions are great. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good one, Michael. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
So thanks again, folks, for watching. It means the world to me that you do. And again, this is Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, the place where you can discover your truth. You've been listening to United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Please join us every week on Thursdays from 5 to 7 p.m. EST. We have live stream shows every week, and I please appreciate every one of you joining us. Every show live streams on YouTube, Rumble, and this speaks for the network, Roku TV, and Facebook. Please join us always in one of the various chat rooms to connect with the hosts and their guests. All audio archives are uploaded to 200 different sites. Each week, listeners will be introduced to featured guests from various television shows, films, radio shows, as well as many authors with best-selling books and beyond. These amazing individuals are well-versed in their respective fields, which include, and are not solely, ancient history, ufology, paranormal or high strangeness, extraterrestrial theory, conspiracy theories, cryptozoology, alternative history, mysticism, metaphysics, esoteric, world mysteries, and anything else that falls under the high strangeness umbrella. Nothing is off limits within this network. We look forward to a few laughs along the way. Getting to know our listeners is very important. We hope you will all join us for this amazing journey where you can discover your own truth. Thanks again so much for watching. Have a blessed one, and I will see you all next Thursday.